Bengals draft breakdown. Let's get it. What is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike coming back at you with another Who Daily. What a weekend. We finally can stop Team Chase versus Team Sewell, Civil War, all that's done. We're now just one big family again. The Bengals fam. What we're going to do today, I'm going to take a look. This is my draft breakdown show. Nothing crazy. We're just going to take a look at the picks. I'm not going to grade. Guys, draft grading is dumb. Anybody who's trying to give you a draft grade on a draft where none of the guys have even taken a snap in the NFL yet don't know what they're talking about. Every year there's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round players who crush it in the NFL, undrafted free agents that come in. Grading a draft is silly. It just is. If you guys really want to meet, if you guys really want draft grades for these guys, there are plenty of people out there giving their. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk about the players. So let's go through the picks. The big one, obviously, first one, wide receiver Jamar Chase. Really, just going to be a stud. That's what I think. In the second round, they went ahead and traded back, and we'll talk about Jackson Carman as well. They picked Jackson Carman, the tackle out of Clemson. And if you guys are looking, like the last 2 years, the Bengals have added a lot of players that played in the last 2 national championship games. They're looking for players that expect to be in big situations, that expect to win, that expect to go and accomplish big things, and that is a big deal for a team that's looking to do just that with their roster. Round 3 with a very nice pick.
Nice.
Of 69, Joseph Asai out of Texas. This might have been one of the steals of the draft, guys. Joseph Asai, I think, is going to be a problem at the next level. Then we got Cameron Sample. There's the next pick that he's listed as an edge player, defensive end out of Tulane. I think, and I'll talk about it in a minute, I think the Bengals are going to use him a little differently than that, and I'll tell you why. Round 4, pick 122, Tyler Shelvin. This is one of the picks that they got in the trade back with Jackson Carman, with that round 2 package where they got Jackson Carman, Tyler Shelvin, and then also Deontay Smith there, the tackle out of ECU. He to me projects to be a guard, and that's to do with his body, but I'll talk about that when we get to him. They took a kicker. Guys, this guy better be really, really good. Evan McPherson better be the next Justin Tucker. Who, by the way, if you're saying if you're using a 5th round pick on a kicker, he better be Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker was undrafted. Most kickers that perform really, really well are undrafted. So, look, this is their 7th pick, right? They took 6 players before taking a kicker. So you can say, well, this really kind of equates to like a 7th round pick. There were lots of players on the board when they took Evan McPherson that I like, and I may talk about that later on. But right now I'm just going to break down what they actually did, not what I think they should have done. Round 6, pick 190, they took the center out of Georgia, Trey Hill. Then their second round pick, or second, 6th round pick 202, they took a running back, Chris Evans. I think that's a really good move. And in fact, if you watch the channel, Chris Evans has been in the conversation for that Giovanni Bernard replacement type pick later in the rounds for me for several weeks now. And then round 7, pick 235, they take the defensive end, Wyatt Hubert out of Kansas. So you guys can, out of Kansas State, I'm sorry. You guys can see what the plan was here. It's wide receiver, kicker, and then trenches. That's the plan, and that's what they did. And we'll talk about how well they did here in a sec. Let's break down these picks. You guys all know who. Let's jump right in with Jamar Chase. You guys all know who Jamar Chase is. One thing I really want to look at for Jamar Chase is this page out of the PFF draft guide, which breaks down the routes and targets, and it's a heat map, right? And you can see right here, he runs routes and is most successful and is most dangerous on the field, running routes in the exact places that the Bengals struggled to get yards and get completions last year, with Joe Burrow trying to throw outside to AJ Green and to T. Higgins. They just were not connecting very much. There's unless Joe Burrow, and the reason Joe Burrow kept having to hold on to the ball and extending plays and taking more hits than he really needed to, the reason for that is because T. Higgins and AJ Green were not, and to a certain extent Tyler Boyd, but they were not getting open down the field where he could deliver the ball on time and make these throws. Well, we've got a full year of tape of Jamar Chase doing exactly that with Joe Burrow, the same dude. This is, to me, the Bengals here identified what the real problem was with their offense. It was not the offensive line. The offensive line was not great, but they also were put in really bad situations. By the way, it's not like they just ignored the offensive line. That narrative is just lazy and stupid. I know you guys know that. I'm not going to go into it and rail against it. This is a Bengals positivity channel. I'm telling you why this is a really good pick, because the Bengals took a look at their offense. Where did they fail? The only thing they really couldn't do with consistency, as Joe Burrow settled in that middle part of the season, the only thing they really couldn't do with consistency is hit these deep passes. They took a look at this, that tape, that Jamar Chase tape. Take a look at this heat map. Look at where he throws, where he runs routes, and where they throw the ball to him. Right? And now let's take a look at what they did in the second round. Here's what I think happened. If it were me sitting there at 38, you could have sat there and there were two options: sit here and take Tevin Jenkins. Well, I guess three options. Sit there and take Tevin Jenkins at 38. Sit there and take Jackson Carman at 38. Trade back and hope one of those two guys falls, right? They took that third option, and it worked. Here's the thing. You can say, oh, I like Tevin Jenkins better. They obviously didn't. It seemed like to me they had similar grades on Jackson Carman and Tevin Jenkins, and I trust them. And I told you this before. I'm going to trust the experts that get paid to do this, guys like Jim Turner, guys like Willie Anderson, who's been working out with Jackson Carman. I'm sure he had input with Jim Turner on what he sees with Jackson Carman from working out with him. Jackson Carman is from Cincinnati. He's excited to come play for the city. He's excited to be there blocking for Joe Burrow. These are the types of players that you really want and need. And Jackson Carman has all of the tools, every single tool, to be a successful offensive lineman. I think he has a little bit shorter arms than necessary to be an elite level of tackle, although there are plenty of tackles in the league. There are two of them on this Bengals roster who are more than adequate, above average tackles without having elite arm length, right? So the Bengals obviously aren't worried about the arm length issue. And you'll actually see through this draft there's a trend. They paid more attention to physical traits than physical testing. So the RAS score stuff that I was on top of all through the draft process, they didn't pay as much attention to that, right? I think what they did is they went and worked guys out, made sure that they were the kind of person that they want on their team first and foremost, and then secondly, do all the traits fit? Because Jackson Carman, he doesn't have elite arm length or anything like that, but he has elite athleticism, and for a guy that weighs 325, 330, moving that well is just, you don't see it very often. He's in the 81st percentile for pass block grades. He's in the 82nd percentile for gap run grades. He can get out. There's a lot of tape of him getting out and moving, right? Getting out into space and just knocking people out. And that's why I think he slots better as a guard. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, right? Can Jim Turner flip him in like quick enough? Because he played all of his snaps in this past year for Clemson. He played all of his snaps at left tackle, right? So let's see, does he have the kind of athleticism to switch from left tackle to right guard in one off season and be good enough at it to go ahead and start as the Bengals right guard? I think that's probably the plan. But best laid plans. So if you look at what they're doing here, they're saying, I'd rather get these two extra picks and take whoever falls to us between Carman and Jenkins. And I can't fault that logic. Honestly, I'm looking for reasons to be mad at this, and I can't until I see these guys play. Now, if next season, Tevin Jenkins is a damn Pro Bowler and Jackson Carman struggling to see the field or stuff like that, then we can start talking about it. What are you guys doing? Why couldn't you see this coming in your evaluations, right? But we don't know that yet. So let's go. Let's give them. I'm all for rooting for the local guys, for the local players coming back to the team and building a culture in Cincinnati. So let's take a look then at what they've done. Third round, Joseph Asai. Love Joseph Asai. as a 3rd round pick. I had him slotted as a 2nd rounder. He just doesn't really have a weakness. He's super solid and he's flashy. You rarely see him really out of position, but he can get off balance quite a bit sometimes whenever he is, because he's only 256, 256 pounds, 260 pounds ish. That's not small by any means, but that's also not, big enough to maintain your balance when a 330-pound tackle trying to push you to the ground. But he has incredible bend. This is a really good pick because the Bengals really need options on defense. The reason they got carved up last year on defense was less about the scheme they were playing and more about their limited options of who they had to play the scheme, right? Like, they didn't have anybody to. Once DJ Reader went down, they did not have another nose tackle type player to come in and help stop the run. Which they also addressed in this draft with Tyler Shelvin, right? Tyler Shelvin's ceiling, I think, is basically DJ Reader. So having two DJ Readers is pretty solid, right? And also it keeps both of them fresh, and both of those players will play much better if they're fresh. Joseph Asai, though, he's going to be rotating in with Sam Hubbard. When Sam Hubbard's more of your, 1st and 2nd down run stopping, just solid defensive end who can really turn it on and get after your quarterback. But he's not. What his value is being extra solid and maintaining the edge integrity against the run. Now you have a guy in Joseph Asai you can rotate in and have Trey Hendrickson coming off one side, Joseph Asai coming off the other side, along with really unique linebacker packages looks that they can put together to rush the passer with Akeem Davis-Gaither. So you got these multiple looks and a lot of stunts, a lot of hyper athletic dudes that you can do a lot of stunt work with, that you can try to confuse the quarterback. So I really like Joseph Asai. I was really surprised he was still there. At the time, Rashad Weaver was sitting there, and and I even tweeted it out. I don't know. I like Rashad Weaver quite a bit, but I've been proven wrong there. Rashad Weaver is like, I saw a tweet where he told the cops he had no problem hitting a woman if that's what needed to happen. And he didn't say woman, he said female. It's problematic. Anytime you hear a guy say the word female when he's referring to a woman, that's problematic. That is problematic. If that's in your lexicon, if you refer to women as females, dude, reevaluate. I mean, just do it. So, Joseph Asai, love that pick, right? Pick number 4, Cam Sample out of Tulane. Now, here's the thing about Cam Sample that I try to tell you guys. Cam Sample, I think, is going to be the future 3-tech, the 3-tech of the future, basically taking that 3-tech Geno Atkins role. The reason for that is because he's a weird size for a rush edge. While he rushed from the edge a lot last year, Tulane also used him as like a 3-tech pass rusher the year before that. And he's 6'3", 280. So you could see a situation here. And he's also, when you look at him, he's kind of built like Geno. I mean, he's not got the wide hips. Geno has really wide hips. But Cam Sample he's stout. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 280 pounds. You could really see him getting in the weight room with Deontay Smith, their other pick, the tackle. Out of ECU, because they both need to get in the weight room and just put on some muscle mass. If he puts 5 to 10 pounds of muscle mass on and gets up to 285, 290, 6'3", with his speed rush and his get off technique, he would really be able to split the gap. You've got to use 2 guys to block DJ Reader and or Tyler Shelvin, and if you're doing that, you're trying to block a guy like a Cam Sample with one interior offensive lineman. And if he shoots the gap, he'll get to your quarterback before he even gets to the back of his set. Really good pass rush options now that you're seeing along the line with the Bengals. And that's why I really like that pick. And that's what I think they'll try to do. I think they're going to try to develop him into that 3-tech pass rushing defensive tackle of the future, a la Geno Atkins. So next we'll talk about Tyler Shelvin. He's a monster of a human, just a monster. Look, this is a project pick just like the last 2 we talked about, but the thing is with Tyler Shelvin, if he hits, you're talking about the kind of player that can dictate what a team does in their run game. When he's in the game, you can no longer It's like DJ Reader. You can no longer just bludgeon this team right up the middle. I think one of the biggest values of Tyler Shelvin is now he can come in and spell DJ Reader, and these big dudes that are 350 plus, it's tough for them to play 80 defensive snaps a game. It just is. These are huge. So having that rotation, if you guys remember, I talk about this all the defenses the Bengals have put together over the past decade or two that have approached elite, right? The things that they always have, the one thing that defense always has, they're deep, right? Then the fall off from your starting edge players to your pass rush edge players that come in to rush the passer, there's not a huge gap between them, and their defensive tackle group goes 5 deep where they can all rotate in and keep each other fresh. Offensive lines don't rotate. The 5 dudes, unless there's an injury, the 5 guys that started the game are going to be there the whole game. And all of a sudden you get into the late third quarter, into the fourth quarter, and you're facing a fresh DJ Reader and a fresh Trey Hendrickson because they've been rotating throughout the game. Now you're starting to see those game-changing plays that happen at the end of the game to lock up games, right? That's when the Bengals defenses have been really good, and this is what they're building with this draft. This is what they're getting back to, and I think that I think that they've done well if that was their plan for this draft, right? Let's take a look then. We talked about Tyler Shelvin and Cam Sample, Deontay Smith. Deontay Smith's a hyper athletic offensive tackle out of ECU. He's a very, very raw prospect. His numbers are not great as far as a guy that played at a college the size of ECU. He was only in the 75th percentile in pass block grade. He was only in the 69th percentile in run block grade. However, this is what I talked about earlier when I said the Bengals don't seem to be paying attention to the RAS scores. It's more about the tape, what they see on the toolkit that they see on the tape, and the physical tools, the measurable physical tools that they have. Because Deontay Smith has super long arms. He's got like 35-inch arms, 36. It's just crazy length for his arms. But he's kind of slim through the hips, right? And so what he's going to need to do is get more powerful in his core, right? So he can withstand a bull rush from an NFL defensive lineman. But he has all the tools to be able to, you can see if you get him within, and the Bengals have a very good shot here at developing these offensive linemen. They knew they were going to take developmental offensive linemen late in this draft, and that's why Frank Pollock's a huge hire, especially because they hired him on a multi-year contract. They know that he's going to be able to work with these guys year over year over year in order to get the most out of them, right? Which is huge. Yeah, ask any front office, any front office person, any head coach, and ask them what the most important positional coach on the team is. They're all going to say offensive line coach for 2 reasons. Really good offensive line units are very hard to come by, and number 1. And number 2, most of the time your offensive line coach is also your run game coordinator or informs the run game coordination really at a really, really high level. And if you get a really good one, that's 2 really important parts of your offense that's in good hands. After Deontay Smith, they went ahead and took Evan McPherson. Look, I already talked about it. That pick is what it is. That dude better be really good. I've seen the YouTube videos of him, kicking a football on it. There's a taped, a Gatorade bottle taped to an upright or something, or like a railing. He kicks it and it, spins the cap off the bottle. That's very, very cool. Make field goals. That's all I need you to do. If you go out there and you make every single field goal, I'll be fine with it. But anything less than that, dude, taking kickers, look, he better be the kicker here for 10 years. We'll see if it works. I'm not going to bash him too hard for it. We'll see if it works out. If he's the next Justin Tucker, then this works out. 6th round, they took one guy who's a development, Trey Hill. And look, I'm not huge on Trey Hill. Trey Hill is super, super raw. He's not athletically. PFF had him as undrafted, right? But 6th round guys, if they saw something they liked. Again, Trey Hill meets all the measurables. He has all of the measurables of a guy who ticks all the boxes for offensive line. He's got the right arm length. He's got the right height and weight. He's got the athletic ability on tape to move around a little bit. So he's got the toolkit. He doesn't have the production, and he doesn't have the athletic testing to make you say, wow, that's a really good pick. However, again, if anybody can get the best out of a zone blocking center in this draft, it's Frank Pollock. Let's see what Frank does with him. Again, it's not that big of a deal if your 6th round picks don't hit, 6th and 7th round picks. However, Chris Evans, I think, will hit. I think Chris Evans, he's actually from near where I'm from. He's from Indianapolis. He went to Ben Davis High School. Came out of Ben Davis High School as a high schooler. They said they clocked him at running a 4.34 40, which is nuts for an 18-year-old kid. He's explosive. He's really good in the pass game. This could be your Gio Bernard replacement type player who can come in and be a 3rd down back. Also look out for, they didn't draft him, but they signed Puka Williams Jr., who I was very much on. If members of the channel will know, I really like Puka Williams as a kind of jitterbug game breaker, catch screens out of the backfield, get him in space type of guy. Could even return you some punts. Watch for Puka Williams to possibly make the team because he's dynamic, and that would make this running back room maybe one of the best in the league with Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, Chris Evans, Puka Williams. I mean, that's nasty. They did a good job of replacing Gio, and they needed to because they're going to pay him too much money. Next, last one, talk about Wyatt Hubert. Wyatt Hubert. He's basically relentless motor, splashy type of dude, but just doesn't have the. He gets the absolute most out of his physical tool set, but his physical tool set is limited. I like the guy. I think that they're picking the right types of players that are motivated, that are going to come in and know how to win. But Wyatt Hubert, look, he's a 7th round pick for a reason, man. But what I really like about this is the Bengals clearly identified holes in their roster, right? And they went and they attacked it. What they did was they said, okay, first and foremost, we lost AJ Green. That's the best wide receiver in franchise history. We lost him. He was the guy that stretched the defense for us along the sidelines and made teams respect those deep balls with their safeties. We got to replace that. They went and got the guy that did that the best in college football over the last 2 seasons. He didn't play this last season, but they got him. They got Jamar Chase, who not only did that, doesn't just have that on tape, has that on tape with your current quarterback. That's a huge deal. I think people are overlooking that. Also, you had Frank Pollock today. I saw a tweet today where Frank Pollock was talking about how he doesn't mind not taking an offensive tackle with that number 5 pick because of how important it is to get a receiver to dictate the coverage of the defense. And if you dictate the coverage of the defense, something they didn't do last year because no one was afraid of the deep ball, when you dictate the coverage of the defense, you dictate the pass rush options that the team has. That's a big deal. And once and because that narrows down what can happen along the offensive line, that improves communication along the offensive line, picking up the limited amount of stunts that can happen because you can't blitz that strong safety, or you have to drop your middle linebacker into coverage. That dictates a lot of stuff, and that really helps, right? So they identified that, and then they went ahead and attacked those trenches. They identified the kicking game as needing help, and they did that. That's really, really good. I'm gonna reserve the any kind of harsh judgment to see now. Like if we get after minicamp and we get into the preseason and you start seeing the cuts and you start seeing some of these 4th and 5th round players getting cut, then you didn't draft very well. You just didn't. So I'm not gonna bash anything. Everybody's you see some people in the national media freaking out saying basically their argument is this: if the only way the Bengals could have had a successful draft is by drafting Penei Sewell. And that's just dumb. I mean, it's dumb on its face for lots and lots of reasons. So I'm going to keep it up. We're going to do some more in-depth breakdowns of these guys, maybe some film review, talk about how they could affect the team, but also maybe later in the week we'll take a look at like some of the moves, some of the head scratchers, some of the moves I didn't like that the Bengals made here. But that's going to do it for me today. I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily.